Good afternoon, Scott Baker.
Mikey, how are you? We are here to talk about field notes today on our live discussion that will then go out on demand later. I'm a little fired up. We were in a prior conversation, so I'm coming in having been kind of on a rant, and I hope that I made sense in the meeting that you and I were just in, and that you're not going to say something to me like, "I'm surprised."
No, not at all. But that is the topic of our discussion today for the next 15 minutes.
Yes,
Is around this
yes.
idea of using "I'm surprised" as strategic feedback for others.
And I think you'll agree. I think it's our first two-word headline for a field note after 4 years and 36 million views of field notes. And you would look at it and be like, did they forget to finish this headline?
Right. No, I'm trying to figure out. I think this would be our first two-word. Like one is a compound word, but so maybe you would count it as three. But probably our first one with just one space in it. How about that?
Yeah, right. All right. So what does this mean? So we're not playing like some little semantic deflection here.
Right.
This is really about leaders who do have important things to say to people. There's some feedback, some criticism, some maybe there's disappointment. Like the leader is like, how did this get so far off track? And the problem is that when you come in and you say, well, that didn't go like I thought it was going to go, and what went wrong, and how did we lose that sale? Well, you can create this sort of avalanche that comes down on a person, a team, a culture, where all of a sudden, and the phrase in the field note is, it's a tsunami of doubt and insecurity.
Right.
But yet, you do, as the leader, you feel like you have to say something.
You do.
So what do you do?
Yeah. It's difficult, and especially if you are a leader who comes from performing excellent. Like the reason that you are in the leadership chair today is because you were exemplar when you filled the role yourself.
Yep.
If you practice excellence, you know what excellence looks like. And so those types of leaders are normally very stingy with praise anyway. And they feel really compelled to say something when things didn't go well. Right.
Right.
At that point in their leadership journey, they're probably like, I can't always talk about like how disappointed I am because I want to encourage people. Right. And they know that I have really high standards for excellence. So how do I display, this feedback in a way that people know could be better, but I don't say it in a discouraging way that actually deflates people, right? It's a common kind of paradox that leaders find themselves in.
And I will say that when you hear it and you read it and you think, I don't know, I'm a little, hold with it. I have had this said to me in our company long before I read this field note, and I don't think that I objected. Like, I think I've heard it said in a way where I actually thought, where when a leader says, I'm surprised that you decided to do the presentation that way by beginning with the case studies before you got into the deep need that the client had, right? Now, if they say that, I kind of understand that they think that I didn't do this in the right order, but there's a feeling of an open-mindedness to it, even if I get a sense that the person might not agree, right?
Yes.
So that's the whole key is if you say, I'm surprised by that, or, I've seen you do a lot of implementations, and this one was different. I guess I'm a little surprised. What was your thinking?
Right.
So the I'm surprised is the part that kind of is the tell that I'm not trying to trap you in, because I just say, I've seen you do lots of things and you did this one differently. Why did you do that? Well, you might start going down that path thinking everything is hunky-dory.
Right.
And be like, this was so great. Whereas I'm surprised it says, I'd like to hear some reasoning around why you did it that way.
Yes.
And so I actually think that cuts that divides this just right. It allows the leader to express just that level of concern, but it actually invites the inquiry back from the other person. Well, here's what we did. Now, where did that catch you off guard, or why did you not feel like that worked?
Right. Okay, so here's the pushback on it, and it comes out of our comment section on Substack. Someone who wrote in saying, the phrase "I'm surprised" is deceptive at best, if you're not actually surprised, right?
Well,
So
I agree. I don't think you should actually be deceptive, and or a leader should not be playing around with the truth.
right.
I actually do think that surprised often fits when we are disappointed. It actually is accurate. Like we're
Yes.
like, I didn't think that was going to happen that way. I'm surprised.
Right. Which goes to what we most commonly say about the implementation of admired leader behaviors, right? Once
Mhm.
you understand that there is this cohort of leaders that is out there, that is a very small cohort. And what we've done is we've kind of studied and looked at what their actual behaviors are. We've seen what's in common with all
Sure.
of the admired behaviors leaders, instead of trying to figure out how everybody's differences are the way that we should figure out how to lead. That once you understand that there's hundreds of them out there, these behaviors that we talk about, and
Mhm.
once you see them on paper and know that there's something that you can actually practice and there's skills that you
Right.
can get better at, you have the tendency to think of them as little tactics that you deploy, these secret little tricks, right? And so
Then they won't work.
looking at this as I'm surprised as one of those tricks, I'm going to pull this out and try it out. We would have the same kind of recommendation for you. Whoa, 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 whoa. That don't use this as a hack. Don't use I'm surprised as something that you just pull out and flippantly try as magic words, because
Yeah.
they will fail for you if you do that. So this comment that came at us is like a pushback on what we're trying to say here, probably comes from someone who doesn't know the philosophy by which we operated
Right.
behaviors. And so that's understandable. And by the way, Bob, I think your name is, we completely agree with you. Like from the way that you,
Yeah, for sure.
we also don't think that it would be deceptive. And if there's anything in there, we would recommend you not do it anyway. Now, on the other hand, it brings back a little bit pushback to Bob then,
Mhm.
like, because he goes on to say, truth is often difficult. And if you disagree with a perspective or choice, say so directly.
Mhm.
Like, okay, if that's what you mean by that, we've got more to say where I'm surprised should probably be redeemed here. Because aren't
Right.
there
Right.
times where your feedback, if you know it's going to disagree, you're going to create resistance?
Yes, and that's the whole thing, which is where a lot of times we just want to give our correction and just download the feedback, and then we feel better because we just dropped knowledge on you. But if it doesn't actually have a chance to land, what good is it? Whereas
Right.
there's lots of things that you can do that are true to you, that are key to your character. Where I'm surprised is just a part of that it makes that it's a nuance, it's a virtuosity nuance around just how am I going to get the language and expectations of the other person on the table so
Yeah.
that I can kind of get a perspective of where they are.
Mhm.
I can tell them that this is not just me like doing a false compliment. I'm not coming in with real anger, but we're going to get to a serious understanding. Why? There may be an issue that affects me, the company, everything else, but I want you to be better,
Yeah.
right?
It,
And this conversation is going to make you better.
it does all kinds of things. I'm surprised creates an openness in the conversation.
Hmm.
It doesn't set like a line in the sand that says, now you who's receiving my feedback, defend your position. It doesn't do that.
Right, right.
It creates an openness. It creates questions. If I were to say to you right now, Scott, I'm surprised, your next response would be like, surprised about what? Like,
Right.
like go into more detail, right? And what a
Yeah.
great way for us to like position you in such a way where you're asking for more feedback. You're
Right.
asking
Yeah.
for additional, right? So I
Yeah,
think
yeah. If we were done and you're like, Scott, I know we've done a couple hundred of these discussions about the field notes, live most weekdays. Um, I'm a little surprised today that you kind of dove in the way that you did, because you're normally so prescient and so insightful.
yes,
And but today it seemed like you just were winging it. It's
right.
like, like, no, I really thought it. I wrote out some notes. I had some illustrations, and I could get real defensive. But if there was an elegance to how you did it,
Yeah,
then it would engage in it would open up the engagement. I think that's it. And the
right.
examples that are given in the field note, I think are, I mean, anytime you give examples, they can sound a little contrived, but I think it makes sense, because if you say, yeah, I'm a little surprised that the report was late. Now, that doesn't mean that if you say, um, I know that we promised this client that we were going to have this prospectus on this new training program, and we told them that, right? Now, if I say the report, I'm a little surprised it was late, but you say, oh, yes, I had talked to our contact at that client firm, and they added a few elements to what they wanted in the scope. And so we extended the deadline so that we could reincorporate that. And that's why we sent it 3 days after the original time period. Well, that's really good to know before I'm like, what is the reason why we're sending these late proposals? Because I wasn't dialed in on that other piece of information.
Right.
That helps, right? So if you
Right.
say, I guess I was a little surprised at the tone of the email, and then you get some, you might be saying, let's think about the tone that we're using when we're dealing with clients who are upset with the scope that we actually gave them, or whatever it is. You're
Right.
trying to kind of lower this resistance,
Yeah.
bring it a little more indirect, and you're actually going to be more powerful.
So what I really love is a follow-up phrase to this. So if I was going to talk about like a harsh email that you sent,
Mhm.
I would start off by saying, somehow it would come up. You would ask me what I thought about the email. I would say, I'm surprised. Frankly, I'm surprised.
Mhm.
Then the next natural thing is like, how are you surprised? What are you surprised about? And then my follow-up thing, if I wanted to like kind of maintain this notion of surprise, but I want you to talk instead of me,
Yeah.
is like, I would just say, it's not like you.
Yes. Right. That's
Right?
another way to do it. Right.
But wait, so you're not like going straight to not in keeping with your character, right? Because now
Right.
it's aspersions that I've cast on you.
This is not like your regular style. That
Yes,
softens it a little bit. Yeah.
right. But you referenced it earlier in the conversation here. For me to get to you to say out loud what your standards, your language game, I want you to be able to talk about it. Because if
Mhm.
you're talking about the fact that your email is different, it's not like you to send one like that. I want you to talk about it. Now, it might feel like you're defending yourself at this point, but you're not defending yourself from my accusations. You're
Right. Right.
defending what you did, right? And why you did it. And I want that conversation to come out of you before I have to say anything, right?
Right.
And in that,
Now,
you might be giving yourself all the feedback you need. I wouldn't have
that
to
might
say
be
it.
it. That's the beauty. The best leaders deliver feedback in a way where you kind of deliver your own feedback, and they're like, "Well, that sounds pretty good."
Yeah.
Now, like, and you alluded to this, but in the panoply of the kind of content we work with, both in our free field notes and in a lot of our other exclusive content, it's you need a quiver full of all kinds of arrows, and so the kind of statements or questions or approaches you could take to be a true virtuoso, you're going to need a lot of different things. This, I'm surprised, should not be a phrase that you're using very often.
Right.
It's not even a once a week thing.
Right.
And it's the kind of thing that, like, when you bring it out, it fits that circumstance in just the right way, that it creates an invitation to a really good conversation. Now, in the meeting that we had prior to this live conversation, you were talking to somebody who was not in the meeting today, but was in the meeting last week, and you were surprised at their perspective
Yes.
on that particular issue. So in the next meeting where we're all in there, are you going to, you could have the last week said, I'm surprised.
Yes.
Now, obviously that would have been before this field note came out, and that would have been great, because it would have been like, okay, you didn't take a clue from anything. This week, if you did it now, it'd be like,
Well, he won't
right.
open the conversation by saying, anyone have any comments about this decision? So I will have to bring up the I'm surprised in a unique way.
I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying it would be fun.
I am trying to figure out the best way to incorporate it. Okay, so I wanted to mention before we leave here, we're at 45 seconds left. We do these conversations on a daily basis for just 15 minutes. And we do them solely around the field note of the day. As we've been talking for the last 14 and a half minutes, we may have said something that like upset you, or you wanted to argue with, or you wanted to wholeheartedly agree with, or give an example for. Please do that in the comments of the field note of that we were talking about today. So it's our latest field note. It's on Substack. It's Admired Leadership, substack.com if you want to go over there. And we'll have these conversations every day, but tomorrow's conversation will be about tomorrow's field note. If you have something to say about this discussion, please go make the content section, the comment section over on today's field note even more richer than it already is. We invite you to do so.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye now. See you